chaos to clarity to creation. That's pretty much my whole process. Hello, I'm Christine. I am a sewist, I am a card maker, and I'm usually doing both. Today we are sewing on paper again, and if you saw the previous video, I gave some tips and tricks about how to get started. We're taking it a step further today by building our own ephemera. Ephemera is a really popular term in the craft world right now, and it's great to add to journals and to cards and to pretty much any paper art piece you can think of. But what actually is ephemera? The dictionary says it's little pieces of paper that were meant for a one-time use. Ephemeral pieces of paper, if you will. So like a ticket stub or a plane ticket or movie tickets, any kind of receipt, although you should not touch receipt paper. I've just learned apparently it's toxic. And if you are like me and you save everything, you probably have many of these pieces of paper already in your collection. I like working with ephemera because I feel like each piece, whether you create it from scratch or you've saved it from an event, has like a little mini story already built into it. And I don't know about you, but I struggle often to like go from zero to full card. For some reason, creating a whole card brings me a lot of overwhelm. And I think of ephemera as little chapters of a larger book. And by focusing on the tiny chapters, it feels more manageable. Today I'm going to be working on building an ephemera collage, which is a bunch of pieces of ephemera that I'm going to stitch together on my trusty sewing machine. And by the end of the video, we're going to have a piece that can just be tacked onto a card that really needs very little finishing. But you might trick yourself into more finishing than you think. So I've gotten out all of my pieces here and I've done some organizing by category because that helps me create clarity in my mind about which piece I want to work with. You do what works for you. I'm starting with this music sheet that I actually got from a secondhand craft store. So this is real deal ephemera here. I've cut sheets into quarters and dyed them red and green. I've also cut out a small piece of this music sheet that I haven't put any dye on. I think it's a good contrast and keeps the theme. I'm also adding a ticket here that I created using a stamp, and I'm already seeing a theme emerge. Before I do anything final, I'm seeing how my piece is together, and I'm kind of figuring out where exactly I want the edge to be. This is an important part of collage. You want to take your time kind of thinking how the arrangement is going to look, kind of like you're arranging flowers. I'm using a Tim Holtz edge die here to get the look that I want on the red piece of paper. I really like this kind of notebook looking edge. Now I've got all my pieces ready, and what I'm going to do here is add some distress ink to the edges. Inking your pieces of paper is a great way to make them pop against any background, and it also kind of gives them a vintage, antique feel. You can totally skip this if you're doing clean and simple, but I've really fallen in love with the vintage look. And now I'm just arranging my pieces again, getting ready to sew them all together. If you've learned something so far, please consider liking this video. And if you've learned a couple things by the end, consider subscribing. It really helps me build my channel, and it's a free way to show appreciation. Now that I've gotten my collage all sewn together, I think it actually needs something else. So I'm digging through my backgrounds and I've found this tag that I really like. I made it a long time ago, and the colors don't necessarily match the collage in the way that I thought they would, but looking at them together, I think they work. Now I'm going to sew my collage onto this tag, and because I'm using a heavyweight top stitching thread, I want to make sure that I have a needle that's going to do that thread and this paper justice. So I'm using a pretty heavyweight needle, a size 18. It's true you cannot make a mistake when you're sewing on paper, but if you're going for a specific effect, it's really good to know what kinds of threads to use with what kinds of needles. This is going to give you the effect that you're looking for every time. When it came time to put the whole card together, I had the idea of turning the tag into an ornament that someone could actually take off of the card and use on like a tree or a door or whatever. So I made a separate card using the same musical notes that I've used within the little collage, and that's kind of an echo of the ornament itself. I also added a Joy to the World strip, which was like the one missing piece of the story. And now you've got an admit one ticket to Joy to the World, and who doesn't want that? So I want to show you a few cards that I've made using these ephemera collage ideas, but first let me show you some of the materials I worked with. This is vintage sheet music that I found at a local craft store, and it actually has someone's notations already written inside. That is like chef's kiss when it comes to vintage ephemera. I also used this pulpy paperback that I found at a vintage craft fair a while back, and that was a really great background for this cute Christmas Day collage. And as we approach the Christmas making season, or maybe it's all year for you like it is for me, if you've got vintage tags from old Christmas presents, those things are golden. Use those in your next card. And here we are, from that same pile in the beginning, 3 completely different cards, and I could keep going with this vintage ephemera for days and come up with totally different looking cards. All right, friends, that wraps up today's video. Thank you so much for joining, and as always, please leave me any comments you have or thoughts, inspiration, questions. I welcome all of it in the comments below. Okay, take care.